Good afternoon, everybody. This is David Zavislin, and today's session that we are covering is part 2 of our Civil 3D 2009 Introduction Training. I've titled this session Styles Overview, and possibly need to add in the word settings as well. I've kind of lumped the two together in the presentation. Objectives I'd like to cover today in this session include kind of a 5,000-foot view of styles and settings in Civil 3D. I don't really have the time this afternoon in an hour to get into any great detail as to how to create styles and how to manage or manipulate styles. But what I want you to get from this session is kind of a general understanding of how Civil 3D uses the styles and the settings interface in the tool space to control how objects are created or how they appear in your drawing file. And that's really what we're going to kind of focus on today. Some of the objectives I had listed in the handout is to gain an understanding of how Nolte standards have been incorporated into our default set of styles that we've created for you as you start out. We're going to look at some of the drawing templates that we have available and how those are organized to also bring in styles using the Nolte standards. We're going to look at our drawing settings and how to set up a drawing and control some of the default settings there. We'll look at using object styles to control the display of surfaces in the example I have today, but the procedure that we use for surfaces applies to pretty much any of the model objects within Civil 3D, whether it's alignments or profiles or any of the other entities that we can create. We will look at the hierarchical relationships between styles, and more specifically we're going to look at label styles in this exercise on how to manage whether you make changes at the drawing level or way down at the individual style level. And then we'll look at just some different methods for adding additional styles to our drawing. There's a couple we're going to look at. One is we can drag styles from another drawing, or we can use the Nolte Civil 3D style library. And I guess I should advance my slides here. I may go ahead and click on that in our syllabus. Kind of go through again. We're going to look at drawing settings. The style hierarchy is the order that I'm going to go here. We're then going to look at surface styles to get an idea of how object styles behave. We're going to look at the template drawings, and then we're going to drag or copy styles from other drawings, and I'll finish up this afternoon's session taking a look at the Nolte Civil 3D style library and how to get styles out of that. All right, well, I'm going to jump in to the demonstration portion here, so let me switch over to my AutoCAD. There we go. So I've got a session of Civil 3D 2009 running on my desktop, and we went through last week and talked about all the different our last session and talked about all the different components of the interface. And let me kind of minimize some of this, increase my drawing window area. And a lot of what I'm going to be doing today is through the Tool Space tab here. And we're going to be kind of jumping back and forth between the Prospector tab to be able to get to our objects and our model, and then also spending a lot of time on the Settings tab to figure out how to set up our drawing, manage our styles, and control how things are going to be created or how they're going to appear. The drawing I'm in is in the data set for the TRB 0100 course, which is the Civil 3D 2009 Introduction Training. The drawing I'm in is in actually, I'm in the Lesson 1 drawing, which is fine. This drawing, I've created it. It is a sample model. It has existing surfaces. It has alignments. It has profiles. It has a corridor object. It has some pipes in it, so we can see some pipes in plane and profile, plus all the roadway cross sections. So I've got a lot of different pieces to play with here, so we can see how all these different styles behave. Mine's a little different. I do have this little proposed surface that I did here, a little detention pond. I was working out some label styles for somebody the other day, and I just did it in this drawing. So the data set won't have that in there, but other than that, we're going to have this drawing. All right, we're going to start off with drawing settings, and really this is kind of a process that you need to get into with every new drawing you create. So when you create a drawing, the first thing we need to do, kind of like what we did in Land Desktop, is you go into the Settings tab, you right-click on the name of the drawing, and the very first command there is Drawing Settings. So this is where you get to the top-level settings for this drawing. So let me go ahead and click on that. And what you're going to see is some of these tabs and settings are very similar to what we had in Land Desktop. So the first tab here, Units and Zone, almost identical to what we had in Land Desktop. We need to establish what drawing units we're going to be using. So in this case, I'm going to set it up as feet. If I do conversion between feet and meters, I need to tell it whether my feet are interpreted as international or survey feet to control the precision that is being used. And then the scale, and this is a little different than Land Desktop. This scale factor that we apply here, really all that's going to do is set our annotation scale for when we're working in model space. So we'll see that these two values are the same thing, and I'll change this in a sec as we go through here. The coordinate zone here, just like Land Desktop, we can assign coordinate projections. So we can see here's all of our different state plane coordinate systems that we can use. So say this is a project in Colorado. I can come down and say, well, this is NAT 83 Central Zone. What it will do then is with my point data or my survey data, I can then do conversions and generate grid data from my ground data. And that's this transformation tab. So if I've got a coordinate system applied, I can come in and apply different sea level scale factors, or I can do a user-defined scale factor to convert my my coordinates, or not convert my coordinates, but also generate grid coordinates as well as the ground coordinate data. All right. Other things we can do with this coordinate projection, if you use any of the map functionality in Civil 3D, this will allow you to add in correlated GIS data fairly easily to your drawing, and the map functions like the feature data objects will automatically reproject data from their native projection to a known drawing projection. So some of the benefits of setting this. Main warning though is if your drawing is not in a state plane or UTM or known coordinate projection, don't guess, don't pretend. You want to assign no datum, no projection. That way we don't get any false coordinate data on here. Okay, with no datum, no projection, zones are disabled. The object layer tab, I'll cover this a little bit more in the next session, but this controls the layers that objects are created on. And we're going to see that the objects are on these layers, but as we look at styles today, we'll see that the components of the object, in the case we're going to be looking at a surface model, we're going to display it as contours, and we'll see that those contour components are actually controlled by the style which we've assigned to a layer. So this is the physical layer the object resides on, but then the styles are going to apply other layers to use as the display properties for those objects. So hopefully not too much to try to wrap your brain around here. All right. Next tab over, these are top-level abbreviation settings. All the same abbreviations that we had in Land Desktop. It's just they've put them all in a single location. So we don't have to go to the alignment abbreviations or the profile abbreviations. They just have them in this single location. And what this allows us to do is in our label styles, instead of putting in explicit language in the label style can refer back to these abbreviations. So instead of putting in, say, for a curve, spiral, intersect, instead of typing in the character CS, I would reference my label style back to this abbreviation, and then it will display whatever value I have here, and it allows me to come in and quickly make an edit in a single location and apply that to all of the styles in my drawing, all the different label styles I would have maybe for my alignments. All right, these I haven't really touched. These are all the default that came with Civil 3D. Okay. Last tab we're going to look at is the ambient settings, and this is the top level settings for our drawing file. And a lot of these settings we can establish at the drawing level, or we can mine our way down into the different categories here within the settings tab, and we can actually set these individually. So this is kind of that hierarchy that I was referring to for styles, but it also applies to these settings. So I'm going to just kind of start off at the first place here. General settings really are going to control some of the behaviors in Civil 3D. And we kind of looked at some of these last week, whether or not you want to see tooltips, whether or not you want the event viewer to appear every time there's any kind of warning or error message. So we can control that behavior here. But then we come down and we have, actually I'm going to expand them all here instead of digging through them. And I can use these buttons here on the right to expand and contract. So let me expand them all, and that way I can kind of just scroll through. So we can see our default units. Anything that's unitless, we're going to display it as 2 decimal places. Distances, we're interpreting this drawing as being feet, and you can see I can click on here and make these whatever value I want. And that's the top level setting. So again, these are set at the top here, and these are actually all saved in the drawing. So these aren't program settings, these are individual or unique settings for each drawing. Where you see the override columns here, a checkbox in the override column will indicate that the value that is set here is different than the value that is assigned to the parent. Okay, well, being in that I'm at the top level here at the drawing level, I can't override anything because you'll see that the parent is the current level. There is nothing higher than this. So down at the bottom here, it'll show us what the parents are and what the parent values are. For my my precision, we see that there's a little down arrow here in the child override column, and that is letting me know that somewhere in this drawing there is one of the features or one of the other settings. This value has a different value than the parent here, different than 2. So I may have set the distance precision to 1 unit or 1 decimal place or 2 decimal places. Unfortunately, it doesn't indicate where that change has occurred. And you have to watch, because if you click on one of these down arrows, it will actually force all of the children below to accept or take on the default value here. So I make sure I'm not going to click on that because I have no idea what that's going to change. So you kind of have to watch it as we come through here. All right, and I'll just kind of scroll through, and you can see just some of the other settings here. And it's all of our basic coordinates for elevations, areas. We got volumes, angular units, and so on. So everything that you can set in terms of how do you want this stuff to display while you're working in Civil 3D in this drawing. All right, so that's all of our different drawing settings. All right. I'm going to jump back over to my PowerPoint here. All right, now let me go into the next screen here. Excuse me, and we'll take a look now, and we'll talk a little bit about the hierarchical relationship. And I'm going to do this in reference to styles and the way this is organized. And we were just at the top level here looking at our drawing settings. Well, those settings are then replicated down to all the individual features. And a feature is going to be surfaces, profiles, alignments, corridors. Those are all features. Within each feature, the settings are broken up into different components. You're going to have object styles, label styles. Some of the components have other types of styles, like a profile view has a profile view style. It has band set styles, so there's some unique or other categories depending on what the feature is. Almost every feature will have some kind of tables or tabling capabilities, so there'll be table styles. And then you also have a section in there for command settings, and that's where you can predefine what your default parameters are before you execute a command. And those are all saved again in the drawing, which is one of the benefits we're going to see later on as we look at template drawings, is I don't have to set these every time. Okay. Kind of drilling down a little bit, as we look at labeling, you're going to have different types of labels for each object. So, for example, our surfaces, you have elevation labels, you have contour labels, you have grade labels. All right. Alignments, you're going to have station labels, you're going to have station offset labels, you're going to have geometry point labels. So there's all these different types of styles, and then so under those types you'll have all your different labels, and they will all inherit properties as they move down the chain here. They'll inherit properties from their parent. I don't show it in this flow chart, but a style itself can have sub-styles or children styles that inherit properties from the parent style. Okay, so this kind of works our way down. To hopefully demonstrate this, what we're going to do is I'm going to look at this in reference to some of the labeling components, and we're going to actually look at our profile labels. And what I'm going to do is just demonstrate by changing the text style that's assigned to labeling, and I'm going to start at the top. I'm going to change it at the drawing level, and we'll take a look and we'll see that this affects every label in the drawing. We'll undo that or set it back, and then I'll come in and I'll do it at the profile level and see how that only affects the profiles. And then I'll come in and I'll look maybe just at curve labels as we work our way down the tree here. And then we'll look at just an individual label style. So let me kind of keep that flowchart in mind. In the tool space, here's where I'm going to be clicking. I'm going to start at the drawing level, the profile level, then I'll come down and we'll look at just curve labels, and then of all the different curve label styles that I have, we're going to look at maybe the low point or low point vertical style. I'll have to see which one my drawing actually is displaying. All right, so let me jump back over to AutoCAD here. That's not AutoCAD. That one's AutoCAD. All right, so back inside of AutoCAD, what we're going to do is let me kind of zoom in and take a look at what we got going on here. So we'll see I've got some spot elevation labels here. They're all using a simplex font. I've got some station elevation labels. In my profile, I've got curve labels. I've got some grade labels. And then if we look over at our cross sections here, and hopefully I'm not going too fast for GoToWebinar, we'll see all of these labels are using a simplex label style. So let me zoom back out. What I'm going to do is, starting again at the top level here, we're going to right-click on the drawing, and here's my top-level label style default. So let me click on that, and again, I'll just expand all the categories here so you can see all the different settings. And you'll see most of these have child overrides because there's going to be unique situations where I need maybe a different font, I need a different layer for it, I need a different object reference or orientation, and so on. So all these different components more than likely are going to be have some overrides within the drawing. But what I want to do is at the top level here, let's change our drawing style. So I'm going to click on this value field here, and I get the little ellipsis button. I'll click on that, and I'm not a big fan of this style, and I don't want to see it in drawings, but it allows me to demonstrate it fairly graphically here on the screen. I've got a hand letter font, and hopefully people aren't cringing too bad here. And I'll click OK to that. And it's going to take a minute here to regen and apply all my styles in my drawing because this is a pretty major change. All right, this is at the top level. And hopefully you'll see the power of this is, you know, you label everything and realize, oh, geez, I used the wrong font. Hey, I can come in, pick a different style at this level, and it will apply it to all the labels in my drawing. All right, hopefully we're about done here. So it's done regenning the file here, so let me zoom in and look and see what we got here. So hopefully now we'll see that all of my station offset labels, all of my surface elevation labels, everything is now using a hand-lettered font, which again, I'm not advocating hand lettering. I'm just using it for demonstration purposes. And we'll see that all my profile labels, the PVI, curve, and tangent labels are all now using that same font. And then if I come over and look at my my cross sections, we'll see that all my offset elevation labels are using that. Some of you may have noticed that my grid labels on my cross sections and my profiles did not change because those are not labels. Those are actually components of the grid view and the cross-section view objects, so they are not labels. Those are, you know, if I click on this, we'll see this whole thing is a single object here. So those aren't labels. That's a cross-section view object. And then the same thing on my profile. We'll see that one didn't change. And if I pick it, that is a single object as well. All right, so you can see how that changing in that one location modified everything. Well, I'm going to come back and let's change that back to, yep, come on, there we go. And I'll click on that ellipsis button. I'm going to change that back to L100. And we'll have to wait another minute here for it to regen everything. As we proceed, it'll get a little bit quicker now because I'm not going to modify the whole drawing at this point. Next time we're going to go look at just profile label styles here. All right, almost there. Need to come up with some good jokes and material to fill these dead times with. Okay, zooming in, we'll see everything is now back to my L100 style, which is using a simplex font. All right, so we'll take a look at, I'll just come down here and look at plan view. Where I had a bunch of labels in here, and we see everything is reverted back to simplex. So real nice. Well, let's drill down now, and I want to modify just profile labels. So I'm going to come in here and right-click on the profile feature group, and here we have, kind of similar to the drawing level, you have settings specifically for the feature, and then we also have label style defaults specifically for the feature. So let me pick on label style defaults. And we'll come in and we'll pick on our text style again. And a couple things I want to point out is we now have a checkbox available in the override column because this is a child. It's no longer the top level. And as I click on a row here, it will show me what the parent value is and who the parent is. Okay, so labels, when I see the word labels, it's probably not the best description, but that tells me it is the top level drawing label style default. So just kind of let you be aware of what that setting is. So we'll go ahead and I'm going to override that. So I'm going to change these to the H100, and we'll see I get this little checkbox with a check in it now indicating that this style overrides the parent. So now when I pick OK to that, hopefully my drawing will regen a little bit quicker than it did before. As you can see, much quicker. None of my plan labels for surface labels and station offset labels, none of these changed. But if I come up and now look at my profile view here, we'll see, and I'll zoom in on this end, we'll see that all my grade break labels, my tangent grade labels, and all my vertical curve labels are all now using that style with the hand-lettered font in it. So I can modify just by individual feature. All right, let me drill down a little bit here into label styles, and we're going to look at curve labels. But let me look at the defaults for curve labels momentarily here before I change it. What I want to do now is clicking on this, we'll see that these are set to the H100, and it will show me where it's getting that value from, because I can see this is not an override, so it's getting it from a parent, and we'll see that the value of H100 is actually coming from the profile. So if I kind of try to do some detective work to figure out where's this style coming from, where do I want to make the edit, this will help you figure that out. All right, well, let me, I'm going to actually come back up to this level, and I'm going to come into here, and instead of resetting this, all I have to do is clear this toggle here, and by clearing the toggle, you see it'll set it back to the default from the parent style, which is setting it back to L100 from our labels. So we'll click OK to that, and then what you'll see is after it regens, all my curve labeling is now back to the default values. And I can kind of keep drilling my way down. So let me edit styles here. So now I'm just doing curve labels, and we'll pick H100 for that one, pick OK. And now what we'll see is all of my curve styles changed, but my grade break and my tangent labels did not. So we can see how I can get a more refined control over my different styles. To change that, I'm going to do it a little bit differently this time. Let's go up to the profile feature group and edit the settings here and expand the label branch. And now here we'll see for my text style, it has the parent value, but I see a little down arrow here indicating that down below now there's a child that has a different value. And since I just did it, I know it's my curve label styles that have the override. I can force all of the children, everything under this branch, back to L100 just by clicking on that down arrow, and it puts a little red X next to it. And then as soon as I pick OK, that will force all of the children below this parent back to the default style. So you can see all of these curves changed back now to the L100 style. And then the last one here, just to kind of beat the horse to death, is we're going to look at our low point label here. So I'm going to just right click and edit that. For the individual styles, you get a slightly different dialog. Okay, and this is set up for editing the styles, but there's a general tab here where I can come in and click on and change the text style There's a layout tab that controls what is being labeled and where it is placed relative to the object. There's a drag state tab that controls if I grip and move a label, how is it going to appear? Is it going to appear the same way it was placed, or is it going to just do it as an M text? Is it going to have a leader? Is it going to have wipeouts? Is it going to have a border? All of that's controlled on the drag state tab. And then the last tab here, summary, is very similar to the previous dialogues we were looking at. As I can come in here and I can click on the text style, and again it'll show me what the parent and who the parent is. Okay, so again I'll just change it for this one style here. We'll modify that, and we'll see now that only affected the low point style here. It didn't affect any of my other curve styles. Okay, now, real quickly I can set that back just by coming into this screen here, clearing the toggle, pick OK, and that will set that back. So hopefully through this little presentation here, you kind of saw, looking back at our flow chart here, how I can come in at different levels here and have different behaviors affected. And really what I want to stress is, as you work on this, you want to modify settings and style properties at the highest level possible. All right, so like my label style L100, I apply that at the drawing level because the majority of my annotation is going to use that style. Okay, if I want all my profile labels to be a certain way, then I would come down and do it at the profile style. Or again, if I want curve labels to be different than line labels or whatever, I would come at that level. So you kind of want to make sure you're going to do it at the location that's going to require the minimal amount of effort. Okay, if I want to go through and change every curve style, you saw in that dialogue, there's quite a few there that I have to edit. All right, so that's all of the style hierarchy. Let's take a look now at some of the object styles here. Make sure I've got the right one here. So let me jump back into my drawing file. Okay, a couple things I want to look at is object styles for our surface models. Okay, and actually let me open up a different drawing here. I've got one with just a surface, and it makes it a little bit cleaner. This probably looks familiar to anyone who's done any of the training that I've done over the past 20 years with Land Desktop. This is the site I have. The original model was built from contours. This surface is the same thing, originally built from contours. I've imported it from Land Desktop, which we'll do in next week's session, or not next week, in 2 weeks. We'll show you how to bring data in from Land Desktop. Okay. As I select this, you're going to see this is a single object. Unlike Land Desktop, you no longer build a surface model and then import contours. In Civil 3D, the contours are a component of the style that we tell it how to display this surface. So we're going to take a look at some of the different options that we have here. All right. What I'm going to do is I can get to my object a couple of different ways. In my drawing, I can select it, right-click on it, and I can get to surface properties here from the shortcut menu, or I can go to Prospector, expand the feature group here, right-click on it, and then I can go to surface properties here as well. And you also see on both of those there's an option here where I can go directly to the style. But let me start with surface properties. And what I want to show you is this drawing already has some surface styles within it. And the one I've been using right now is a style I created called EX1-5, and it displays existing contours at 1 foot and 5 foot increments. Okay, which is what we're seeing here. Let me modify that style. So I'm going to edit the style. And if you don't know the style name, that's real nice. You know that's the one I want to work on in that surface. You just right-click on the surface and edit style. The style settings dialogues are all going to have a very similar layout. Every style is going to have this information tab where it has the name, who created it, when it was modified. Okay. Depending on the object that the style is applied to, you're going to have some different tabs for the different components. All right. All styles will have this display tab, and that's what I want to look at right now. We're going to kind of ignore what makes this a contour style, but we're going to look at the display tab, and this is where I've done a couple of things to set these up. And first thing I want to point out here is that styles are view dependent. So let me pop this list down, and we'll see for surface styles, you have one component display option for plan view, which is what I'm in now. All right. You can do it also for model views, and then when a surface displayed in cross section. So let's take a look at plan view. And what we're doing for this style in plan view, we're only displaying the major and minor contours. We're saying get the properties to display these from the multi-standard layers for major and minor contours, and then we've set all of the color and line type options to by layer. And by doing this, it allows us to manipulate styles using our layers. So I can also XREF this drawing, and I can turn layers on and off just like you're used to doing right now with Land Desktop. So we're trying to keep a lot of that same functionality. Well, I can also control display directly with the style. So if I turn off my minor contour component here and pick OK, we'll see that now only the major contours are displayed for this style. Okay, let me go back into that. We'll do it through this way. So I'm going to edit my style, and I'll turn on minor contours again and regen, and those will now appear. So I can do it through the style, or like we're used to in our Land Desktop, I can come in here and turn off my minor contour layer, and those objects are no longer displayed. Okay, so it gives us a couple of different options for manipulating the display of our components. Okay, if I select on the surface, you're going to see that it is on the C3 tin surface -E01 layer, so I've actually got it set up so these are put on unique layers. I can actually hide the whole surface by coming in here. There it is, and I can turn off, not turn off because there's nothing displayed on that layer. Let me do that again. Let me freeze it. I can freeze that layer and the entire object will go away. I cannot display the entire object, so it gives you another option here for controlling how that is displayed. All right. So let's look now at a 3D view. So I'm going to change, hopefully I got views saved in this drawing. Here we go. So in 3D mode now, we're going to see that this drawing displays as triangles. So let me come back in now to my style editor here, and we'll see that while I'm in model mode, our three-dimensional mode, the only component that we have turned on is the triangles. And again, it's using our default multi-layer for 3D tin. But maybe I want to see contours on the 3D. I can go ahead and click that component, and then the contours will display on that model as well. I'm using a conceptual display style, so my contours don't show up real nice in that mode. Okay, so let me come back in and we'll turn those off. Okay, so now we have just that component. And as we pan and zoom and rotate, and we lost our object here. There we go. Bring that back so we can see we can get a nice surface view. When I return back to a plan view where I'm looking straight down at my XY plane, the style reverts back to the plan mode, and that is applied to every type of style, whether it's alignments, whether it's surfaces, profiles, corridors. They all have a plan mode and a model mode, so you can have different displays while you're looking at it in 2D versus a 3D mode. All right, well, let's take a look at some of them. Why do we see contours here? And I just want to point out some of the options here. Let's switch this up a little bit. I'm going to come over to the Settings tab, expand our surfaces, and then our surface styles. And here's where I can see all of the different styles that I have in this drawing. And then the little triangle icon here indicates that this style is actually being used, which helps me find the one I'm looking for. And I can come back in here and edit it, and I can bring up that exact same dialog. Well, let's take a look at our contour tab here, and this is where we tell it how to display contours when using this style. So I'm going to click on and expand intervals here, and this is where we have this style set to 1 and 5 foot intervals. We do have other styles with different contour intervals. The thought is that way I can have different surfaces in the same drawing with different contour intervals instead of trying to have a style called EX where we're continually changing this interval. So we're trying to kind of make these styles fairly static. A new feature for Civil 3D over Land Desktop is we can now actually display depressions by placing little tick marks on it, which is what you see right here around these contours, and we can control the spacing and the length of those tick marks, or I can set it to false, and we'll see by setting it to false those go away, and I'll turn those back on to true and apply that, and those will show up again. Okay, there's tabs here for controlling how points are displayed, how triangles are displayed, the watershed display, the watershed boundaries, very similar process to what we had in Land Desktop. And then the analysis component we'll take a look at in just a bit. Instead of importing triangles based on elevation ranges or slope ranges, this is now controlled through styles. And I actually have some styles that we'll bring in a little bit to show you how these are put together. All right, so kind of giving you just kind of the general overview of the styles components and properties here. Main thing you're going to see is that component tab where I can control what you see and what layers those are displayed on. Okay, there are hundreds of styles, right? And since they're all saved in the drawing, we need to figure out how to give you those styles when you first create a drawing. And what we've done is we're doing it through the templates. Okay, and actually, let me, before I get too far, one thing I did skip here, talking about surfaces, what I want to do is change my properties here and just show you, oops, that was the wrong property, that was AutoCAD property. Let me try that again. I want surface properties. Is changing the style here. There's a couple that I use quite a bit called border only, and what that does is that will show you just the outline of the surface without the contours. This is the best way to store surface model drawings because it reduces the file size to a minimum. Okay, the surface is still there. I can still get elevations. You'll see I have a tooltip on my screen showing me the Z value for that surface, but the file size is significantly smaller than if you save it displaying contours. Sometimes I'll even go to the point to where I will actually change it and use a style called no display, where you see nothing in the drawing, but you'll see I still get the tooltip. I can daylight to this surface. I can do volumes to this surface. It just, there's nothing to see or display. Okay. Well, I can't pick it to change it back, so I can either go to Prospector. I can change the style by selecting the features here, and we'll see down at the bottom it shows me what style is being used. I can click on that, and it brings up a little dialog that lets me select another style, so I can change that back to my contour style, or I can right-click it here, go back into Properties, and then choose my style there. Okay, I kind of want to make sure I got that. All right, so in terms of now getting styles preloaded or available in our drawing, and I've got in Prospector now, you want to be in what's called Master View. Okay, and in Master View, that will show you all your open drawings. It shows you your data shortcuts, which is covered in the 4th session of this series, and I guess that'd be in 4 weeks. But there's also a branch here showing us all of our drawing templates. All right, some of these, the first two I have here are default that came with Civil 3D, but then I have all of these template drawings using the Nolte layer naming syntax, and then a suffix of either I for imperial units or M for metric units, and these are groups of styles. So if I want to create a existing surface model, I would create a new drawing from the EXTO_I, and I'll go ahead and just click on that. And then what we'll see is as I go over to the Settings tab, we'll see that it has all my surface styles in here, and then a few other components that I would use for doing existing topography. Okay, so come back over. Some of the other ones that we have in here, other templates, EXMA has all the existing parcel styles. FTO stands for Field to Office, and that has all the description keys and point styles for importing survey field data. Proposed Mapping has proposed parcel styles, which will use all the PRMA layers for right-of-way, boundary, lot line. PRPF has all of these styles for doing profiles. more specifically alignments and profiles. PRTO is proposed topography. That's going to have all the proposed surface styles, grading criteria, grading object styles, and then the last one I have right now is PRXS, which has all the cross-section styles that we've developed so far. One of the things I want to point out is to keep these up to date. If you go into Windows Explorer and you go to the Q drive, in the CAD folder there is a Civil 3D directory, and this is where I push out any of the updates, and we'll see that there is a Nolte Standard Template 2009 folder, and then as we make updates to these, they get copied to this folder. This folder gets replicated to everybody's office. All you have to do is from time to time double click on this batch file, and it will then copy any newer or new template files to your Civil 3D template folder, and they will then show up here in the drawing template field. And they also show up in the CAD Launcher here, or Cadillac, when you make a new drawing. All of those styles will, or styles, all those template drawings will show up here as well. Okay, so that's kind of an overview of the templates, but definitely want to make sure that you're aware of that little update function. At some point, we'll probably add a command to the End Tools pull down that'll help you bring those in. All right, a couple things I want to finish up on the template process here. As you make a new drawing, obviously I need to save it at some point and give it a name, but what you want to do is the process should be create a drawing from a template, go to the Settings tab, and then Edit Drawing Settings. So the first thing you always want to do is come in and establish what your different settings are. Okay, what scale do you want to see in model space? You know, what ambient settings and so on that you want to have set for these items. Okay. All right. Copying styles from other drawings. So let me open up another file here. I've got another surface model here. Okay, this file I've got from somebody else, and what we'll see is it's using some odd colors, but let me go to Settings, and I'm in my Lesson 2.4 drawings. Let me expand Surface, Surface Styles, and you see this has the default Civil 3D style called Standard, just like all of the AutoCAD dim styles and dimension styles. I just said that. Dimension styles and font styles, they have a standard font style. Well, Civil 3D, they try to create these standard styles so that you have something if you don't use any of the default template drawings that we've created. Well, I'd like to display this surface using that EX1 and 5 that we had in the other drawings. So the way you do this is, first off, you need to be working in a single session of Civil 3D. It doesn't work with two separate sessions. Both drawings need to be open, and the drawing that I want to copy the style to needs to be the current drawing. On the Settings tab, we come in here and we want to be in Master View, so that way I see all of my drawings that are open. And what you do then is you expand the branch of the drawing that you want to copy from, and just keep working your way down, and I can then pick the style I want to copy, and I can drag it into the drawing window, and if the cursor was showing up, you get a little copy icon on that, and then I drop it into my drawing. So let me scroll back up now into my current drawing here, expand that, expand Surface Styles, and you'll see that I now have the EX1-5 style. I can now edit my surface properties, come in here, change that style, and it's now displayed using that default style. All right, if I want to copy more styles, I come back down in the Settings tab here, I scroll back down to the drawing I want to copy from, and I can pick and drag other styles. Well, if I decide, you know, I want all of these surface styles, I can actually pick on the folder and drag and copy the folder. So again, I'm getting a little icon, little copy icon on my cursor. I will let go. It's going to recognize that, hey, there's already an EX1-5 style in this drawing. How do you want to deal with it? Okay, well, I know I just copied that one over. I can say skip it. I can overwrite it. I can rename it. If you're copying a lot of styles, you can say, hey, whatever I select here, click that and apply it to all the duplicate items. So we'll pick OK, and it will skip that. So now again, when I come back up, and we'll see now in my current drawing, I have all of these styles now available for my disposal. Okay, so I can come in and I can say, well, apply this one. Oops, don't edit style. Apologize for that. I want to go to properties, and I just want to see the border. All right, so now I can have just border only. All right. So that's how you copy styles from one drawing to another. A little caution I need to warn you about is if a style is a child style to another style, drag the parent. And let me show you what one of those would look like. Let me come back over to my settings tab here. And in my lesson 1 drawing, I have some structure label styles that are nested. So I've got these, we'll look at profiles. So let me expand that here. What I've done is I have a storm drain profile style that controls the layer and the text style that's being used, and then underneath that I've created child styles, and we'll see like this one is puts the station rim in invert above, and the other one puts it below. So they're different styles, but they inherit the same properties. If I were to drag and drop this child into my drawing, you're going to get warnings when you open this drawing again about orphaned objects or handles that are orphaned and they don't work because the child is still looking to the parent for those default values. So if you ever want to copy this style or any nested style, you need to grab the parent and then copy the entire branch in. Okay, so that way I get both the parent and any children, because these children are dependent on that parent for some information. So you just kind of need to watch that. All right, so that's one way to get styles. Another way to get styles is through the Nolte style library. So again, the process is you create your drawing from one of our templates. I maybe created this one from my EXTO, but there's some other styles I want to apply. Well, on the End Tools menu, there's a little eyedropper button, which will bring up the Nolte Civil 3D Style Library. And the reason we use that icon is it's using a feature that Autodesk developed called eyedrop, which lets you drag things from a web page into a drawing. And that's also available on the End Tools pull-down menu. There's our command there for the Civil 3D Style Library. Let me go ahead and click OK to that. Let me shrink it down just a little bit here so we can see it on the screen. And I'll expand the category here. And a couple things I just want to point out is, let me come in, so I don't get confused. I'm going to switch this back just to active drawing view, so I'm only seeing my drawing. But let me bring my web page back up. I've organized this so unfortunately it's not alphabetic, but they are in the exact same order in the index here as they appear in the Settings tab. So if you know what you're looking at here from Settings in Civil 3D, you can find the same thing over here in the Style Library. So let me explore this a little bit. So I'm going to click on Surfaces, and same kind of deal. If I expand Surfaces here, and we'll see I have Surface Object Styles, Label Styles, and then Table Styles. And kind of, again, try to correspond to the same thing here. We have our Object Styles, Label, and Table Styles. All right. Let me click on Surface Styles. In this screen, then, as we work our way in, we have a thumbnail image showing what the style will look like. And then you can click on the image to get a little bit better picture of what that style looks like. Are there some descriptive text? Some of the styles have instructions on how to use them. So some of these are a little more complicated, like some of our label styles here that we have for some of our grade labels. If I come down, and I think this one here, if I click on this one, yeah, so this one actually has directions on how to use it once you bring it into the drawing. So a lot more information in some of the expressions that are being used to make that style work. Once I get in here, I can always click back, and it'll take me back to the screen showing the different styles. All right, well, I want to bring in some object styles here. Say maybe I want to show existing elevation ranges here. So I'm going to pick on the eyedropper, and if the cursor was showing up through GoToWebinar, you get a little eyedropper cursor. I'm going to click on that, and then you can just drag it in your drawing file, and you'll get, again, a little eyedropper cursor. It will copy a block from the web server, from the Nolte support website, and it'll ask you to insert it into the drawing. So I'll go ahead and pick an insertion point. So we're actually bringing a block that contains just that style. Okay, I added it, and you'll see that that style does show up now over here in my Settings tab. You cannot overwrite existing styles with this. So if a style already existed by that name, bringing this block in would have no effect. All right, the block has no objects in it, so you're not going to see it, but to keep my file clean, I always do an erase, so E for erase, and then I do L for last, and that will select that block and erase that last block. We can also purge these blocks, and just to help you purge them, or if you want to use quick select to select them, see if I can find one here. There's one right here. They will have a file name or a block name of NC3D09 and then what it was. N for Nolte, C3D for Civil 3D, and then this is the 09 version. For 2007, it'll be, I think they're just NC3D. I distinguish them for a little differently for 09 because they do have different properties in 2009. So I can't take this drawing back to the 2007 version. It won't work. All right, so and I can always say, well, purge that. I don't want that in there anymore, and I can keep my file clean. All right, so you got to clean those out. Same thing, if I didn't do the erase, I can always use quick select and filter for that NC3D name and grab all those blocks and clean up my file. All right, so I brought that in, so let me apply that to my surface just to show you some of the different banding components here. So I'm going to go into my surface properties, and I'm going to change my style to EX elevation, and then we'll pick OK. And it will now display showing triangles sorted by elevation range. And actually, let me change my visual style here. I'll go to conceptual so we can actually see the shading a little bit better. All right. I can control the elevations by modifying the object. So let me select my object here, and I'll right-click, go into my surface properties, and we'll go to this analysis tab. And what we're going to do is I'm doing an elevation analysis. I can control the number of ranges. The scheme is coming from the style. So there's actually a scheme, a color scheme called land. And what I could do is maybe I want 12 ranges. I'll hit the run analysis, and it'll show me the 12 ranges. I can then, well, I should just move this up out of the way here, and then I'll hit apply, and it'll reapply that to my surface object. And what we should see is the coloration will change here, hopefully. Maybe not. Let me pick OK. Give my drawing a chance to, I wanted to autosave. I didn't notice too much of a change there, so let me do it again. We'll do something a little bit more drastic here. So I'll go back into surface properties, and we'll say let's only do 2 ranges, apply that. So I'm going to have just 2 ranges and apply. There we go. All right, so now we'll see the green is everything between 17, or excuse me, above 20 foot in elevation, and then the red is anything from 17 to 20. So we can do different banding analysis. And we can do this with different components here. We can do it with directions or aspect ratios, elevation, slopes. We can apply slope arrows. You can also say bring in your own contours. Maybe you've got a pond and you want to show the water surface elevation at some odd number elevation. I can actually do a user-defined contour, say make 1, hit enter, and then I can tell it what elevation I want that at. So I can say, well, I want it at 20.125, and I can then use a style to display that contour at that elevation. Okay, so kind of let you see how to bring these in from these different locations and apply them. All right, how am I doing on time? I've got 12:27. That is fairly quickly everything I wanted to cover today, so I actually did it within an hour. Next session that we're going to do is on object creation. We're going to look at just some real basic how to make an alignment, how to make a profile, how to make a surface. Not real in-depth because I'm going to do all that within an hour. But again, the goal of this session, or this series of sessions on the Civil 3D introduction, is just to kind of give you a broad overview of some of the capabilities of Civil 3D and kind of give you that kind of general understanding of how this behaves. Future sessions, I will definitely try to do some sessions on style editing and creation. And then there's also some training handouts available through the support website or through the forum that go into greater detail on surface modeling, on alignments, on profiles, and on corridor modeling. But next session in a couple of weeks is just going to be just some real basic, enough to maybe get you going on some preliminary type design work. All right, I've got a couple minutes left. If you have any questions, go ahead and enter them in on the question pane. If I don't have a chance to answer them all this afternoon, I will email everybody with any of the answers that I have along with the questions. So go ahead and I'll give you a minute or so to enter those in. All right, well, I'm not getting any here, so hopefully you guys have a chance. If not, thank you all for viewing today's session. If you did view this session with multiple people sitting at your computer or in a conference room, could you please email me a list of who sat with you and who watched this? We're trying to kind of keep a track of everybody who's doing this session. Because right now, GoToWebinar only lets me know who logged in. It doesn't let me know who's sitting at the computer. So if you do that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you for viewing today's session, and hopefully you will all attend in a couple of weeks for part 3. Thank you, and goodbye.